Originally, I wanted to tackle this topic directly, but I think I've narrowed down the issue on why I don't like women in the Custodes. So we'll talk about a few aspects of Warhammer that I think are important to this topic. I've seen a lot of content creators cover this in vastly different ways, but I don't think I've seen anyone cover it from a book reader only perspective. I also want to cover some criticisms that I've seen since I think they're kind of ridiculous, and I don't know, I just want like a funny little montage at the end. Since last year, I've been reading the Horus Heresy series. I've read Horus Rising through the first half of No Fear. You might be asking, Slub, how is it possible that you haven't bought any models? Well, I almost did. Earlier this year, I went to grab the free mini of the month, which at the time was the Dark Angels Terminator. As I was wandering around the Warhammer store, I saw a Custodes model, no bigger than my thumbnail. Not painted and not assembled. No big deal, I know that's how they come. The issue I had was that it was $40. I don't have the down payment needed to buy a single Custodes model. Then the paint it needs, then the brushes to paint it, then the clippers just to clip it before you even paint it, and the glue to glue it together, and whatever else I need to make that single model come to life. It's ridiculous, but that's a topic for another day. That is, however, why I stick to the books. I am a book-only Warhammer fan. I care about the story, I care about the setting, the characters, and the little details no one in their right mind should care about. That being said, I enjoy the minis and how they look, and it allows me to put a face to the characters. Now, you're not here for why I like Warhammer, you're here to listen to yet another Golden Girl's opinion. Before I go into my opinion from a book-only stance, let's talk about the tabletop crowd. They don't care. For the most part, I'm sure there are people who do care, but they aren't a majority. I'm going to quote someone who I think is the baseline for tabletop players and a good representative of Warhammer fans in general. Bricky.
See, unlike everyone there, I actually play Warhammer. I go out and go to play games with other individuals. I attend tournaments. I meet lots of people at that. And nobody cares. The loudest and most commonplace voice is, oh, cool. All right. And that's it. Because I'd argue a good majority of the people who actually do play this game don't treat it like it's some kind of infallible product. We view it as it is. Goofy, high fantasy, model toy soldier game.
He's right. Warhammer is a goofy tabletop game where you can have ancient Egyptian robots fight a horde of northern London Socogazes. But Warhammer is no longer just a tabletop game. It now has a sprawling lore that covers every possible point in time that you can think of. Want to know who ruled the galaxy before humans had cars? That's covered. Want to know how the Emperor turned into a text-to-speech meme? Covered. Its lore is so vast, I don't think there's another IP out there that comes close. I gotta be honest. I've been stuck on Warhammer for a while, and they got like 300 books and one in the Horus Heresy. I don't know, we'll get there anyway. All great IPs have lore. It's not just Warhammer. Let's look at Star Wars. It's not as big as it used to be thanks to Disney, but there were events, ideas, and other topics that are set in stone. The Force is something everyone has, but only few can utilize, and even fewer can master it. That's what makes the Jedi Jedi and the Sith Sith. There's a mysticism in it, a force of nature, something greater than everything. So rightfully, when George Lucas introduced midichlorians in a sentence, taking the mysticism away and the force of nature now just being whoever has a high cell count, fans were pissed. Likewise, Anakin Skywalker being the chosen one to bring balance to the Force means nothing because Rey, daughter of Palpatine, self-titled Skywalker, was a real chosen one. That breaks the foundation of Star Wars and why there was such a big backlash when the movies came out. It doesn't matter how good your IP is, if you break the foundation of its existence, it's going to go downhill quickly. Let's circle back to Warhammer. I've seen quite a few people who have rightfully pointed out that the Custodes have always been referenced as boys, sons, men, brotherhood. It's been pretty clear they've made it a male-only faction since the beginning. The counter to this is GW retcon everything all the time, so this is a new lore now. That's where my issue lies. I won't mention the worst PR move in Warhammer history just for the sake of keeping this fair, but retcons are inherently bad. Slub, if GW never did any retcons, Leagues of Votann wouldn't exist. Necrons wouldn't have cool lore. The Ultramarine Eldars would still be a thing. You're right, some retcons are good and some are bad, but a retcon in general isn't healthy for the foundation of the lore. That just means someone was a shit writer. Some of you watching might be yelling at your monitors saying, lore changes or lower my balls, bro. But the reality is there are people who don't play Warhammer and are here for the lore, myself included. Like I said previously, the books are how I participate in Warhammer. The lore is a foundation for all of those books. Changes to the foundation ruin the importance of those books if a tweet can just write them off, which to me just means that any book I'm reading, including the entirety of the Horus Heresy series right now, can be written away, and that's just not a good thing in general. Now that you know my approach, let's discuss the new Golden Girls. I have two issues. The first is uplifting one of the fundamental pieces of the lore that all Custodes have been men since the beginning, and I think I've covered why touching a fundamental piece of the lore isn't good. The second part is why I enjoy Warhammer, and that's there are these singular male or female only factions. Sure, there are male units in the Sisters of Battle, but they are support for the main cast. Like Custodes have the Sisters of Silence as support for the main cast. However, only women can be Sisters of Battle, and only men can be Custodes. I think it's an important piece to the setting of Warhammer that these men only or women only hierarchies exist. It's part of the charm. I don't want to see Brothers of Silence or Misters of Battle. That doesn't add anything. It just dilutes the main focus of those factions. It takes away from those already existing factions. That brings me back to Custodes. They are a brotherhood of demigods made to be perfect warriors for the Emperor. It's equally as awesome when GW then subvert that expectation to introduce the Sisters of Silence, who are equally, if not more, badass. They aren't enhanced. They aren't fashioned by the Emperor. The only thing that's special about them is a pariah gene. And that makes it even crazier when I read they are constantly outperforming Astartes, like when the Death Guard are struggling against a Xeno beast in Flight of the Eisenstein and are saved by Sisters of Silence. Yeah, some of them die, but if it weren't for them, the Death Guard probably would have lost a few more bros. Or a pivotal campaign like the Burning of Prospero. The dichotomy of the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence is a perfect representation of the unity of men and women in the Warhammer setting. Without the protection of the Custodes and the Space Wolves, who were getting stomped, by the way, the Sisters of Silence would have been taken out and the campaign would have been a disaster. Without the Sisters of Silence, the Custodes and Space Wolves would have been annihilated by the Psychic Masters that are the Thousand Sons. Together, the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence form the talons of the Emperor. And I think no other group represents the male-only, female-only niche that Warhammer has, as well as those two groups have. Space Marines can go without Sisters of Battle and vice versa. That's fine. But together, the Custodes and Sisters of Silence are damn near invincible. The major issue, however, is pretending that women have always been Custodes, when that's just not the case. Retcons, like I said, can be dangerous, especially to the foundation of the lore. Writing the Custodes as men, writing the Custodes as they've always been men, and then saying that's never been the case is quite possibly, that is on the levels of somehow Palpatine returned writing. Like, that's awful. That's horrendous. So to wrap up why I dislike the ladies in the Banana Hammock Club, it's not that they're women. It's that a foundational piece of lore has changed with zero purpose. I won't leave you without a what should have happened scenario. However, since I think this whole debacle was completely avoidable, if the goal is inclusion, then this is the following lore piece and codex that should have been planned. With the opening of the Great Rift, the Black Pariah gene is now more potent than ever. The Sisters of Silence swell with recruits. The Black ships are no longer their sole purpose. As the Custodes march forth into the galaxy once again, the Sisters of Silence take to the battlefields, fighting alongside the Astra Militarum, ranking members of the Inquisition, Space Marine chapters guarding the ever-growing threat of the Great Rift, and once more, the talons of the Emperor join together to champion campaigns that have wiped Astarte chapters from existence. I think, personally, bringing the Sisters of Silence into the forefront and making them a unique faction that can be run on their own, akin to the Custodes on the tabletop, and more important in the books, would have not only been the better route, but honestly, probably would have made way more money. Not that Custodes are difficult to sell, but you can't tell me an entirely new range for Sisters of Silence wouldn't have been sold out instantly. And if you want to go with the authors always wanted Custodes to be women excuse, the authors should have been on the same page and left the doors open as they went, rather than make it pretty clear Custodes have always been men. Likewise, I dislike the model excuse, because GW makes an insane amount of money off of you guys, and they could have made female Custodes anytime they wanted. I promise to cover some criticisms that I think are trash from both sides, so if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe. The next few minutes are mainly me going to shit on people with some horrendous takes and some memes, of course. And if you have your own take, let me hear it. I'm not gonna close you off. I'm not gonna shut you down. There's no point in doing that. I prefer discussion. I like Warhammer. I want to talk about Warhammer. It's cool. I think it's awesome. But I don't think this change was really, I don't think it did anything. I gotta be honest. So anyways, let's get to the shit show, shall we?
Sorry, a paragraph in a rulebook had a girl in it. I hope you can heal from this trauma.
Sorry, I enjoy a setting and don't want random changes to it for no reason. Also, Reddit.
I'll never understand the warped psychology that causes incels whose only engagement with Warhammer consists of passively consuming free lore online to think that they are the true fans, while those who support the IP by painting minis and playing the games are tourists.
I'll never understand calling people incels for disagreeing with you and then alienating half the fan base of Warhammer fans for only enjoying the lore and not losing 99% of their income to models. Also, you called Warhammer a male fantasy in another comment, so I banish you to the Netherrealm for being stupid.
My favorite thing about the people posting their unsubscribing of Warhammer Plus is some of them are the exact same people who mocked me and anyone else forever ago for having it. You had it this whole time. You little goobers.
Real and true. I yearn for the day Warhammer Plus has more than tutorials and a couple of YouTube videos on it. Except for you, Boylan. You're doing good. Keep the standards up.
Bricky is an actual spineless coward who's gonna side with whatever's safe for his career as the quirky safe Reddit beardman who talks about Warhammer. Yeah, this vid was kinda terrible. The way he feels embarrassed to be a 40k fan is quite frankly disrespectful.
Also, yeah, I'm embarrassed to be a Warhammer fan too. How do you explain what it is when people ask what book you're reading about? It's like dumping the whole Wikipedia on them at once. They're just gonna it's gonna be like Infinite Void from Gojo, You're just fucked right then and there. You're done. It's over.
I hate these kind of people. Used Warhammer as an example cause that's been on my mind recently, lol. Woke. Girl boss garbage. Bad writing. Women treat men like lesser because they are men. Great historical writing. Historical inspiration. Men treat women like lesser because they are women.
I only have one thing to say.
I love the kind of woman that will actually just kill me.